Today's guest started mowing lawns at 11 years old and was in college on a pre-med track at the age of 13 before walking away from medical school at 18 to cut grass for a living. That turned into Augusta Lawn Care, 200 plus locations and over 50 million in system-wide revenue, built on a model that breaks almost every rule of franchising. He's also one of the most watched voices in home services, and he's used that to build a pipeline most franchisors would kill for. Now, as it stands, nearly 94% of you who watch the podcast are not currently subscribed. Our goal is 75%. If you have enjoyed any of the podcasts we've posted, if you could please take a moment and subscribe, you have no idea how much it helps. Not only does it help the podcast, but it helps the channel and the guests we can get on the show. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Mike, welcome to the Exit Plan. Let's go all the way back to the moment you chose lawns over medicine and what you were thinking and seeing at that stage of your life.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love to say that I thought like home service was going to be this breakthrough technology and we were going to do all this crazy stuff. But realistically, at the time, the only thing I knew how to do besides go to college was mow grass. And so when I knew I wasn't going to go keep becoming a doctor and go get my MD, I figured the only thing I could really do was mow grass. That's the honest truth. I knew I didn't want to be a doctor after doing a bunch of volunteering over in Africa. I loved it there. But when I came back to the US and started doing a lot of shadowing, I realized I didn't want to do this for the next 40 years of my career. I didn't like the not just the politics, but the insurance and the bureaucracy. And so I'm like, I know I don't want to do that. I don't know what else I'm going to do, but the only thing I know how to do is mow grass. I'll do that. And then at night, I'll get my MBA. And that was kind of the decision. And I think, fortunately, my family, they didn't really have a shoe in the game, and they were like, do whatever you want to do. I think it was mostly, honestly, a lot of my research lab partners and professors that were like, you're crazy, because they obviously want to see you succeed and move forward in medicine. So
why did you decide to go back to even get your MBA? Was it, hey, if I'm going to do this business thing, I need to develop some of these other skills and things that I want to be equipped with, or what sparked that?
Honestly, I didn't have a plan. I was like, look, if this lawn care thing doesn't work out, I'm going to need something else to fall back on. So I'll go get my MBA. I always knew I was entrepreneurial. I was always selling stuff throughout school. I loved business. I loved making money. And so I knew that if the lawn care thing didn't work out, if I had my MBA, I knew I'd get picked up like Amazon or Microsoft or Boeing, all in Seattle here. And they have a really good placement rate for like the evening MBA program. And so I was like, hey, 12 grand a year, I think it was what my tuition was for that program. I can start Augusta Lawn Care and then just do that from 6 to 10 p.m. every night.
I love it. So it was lawns were the backup to med school, and the MBA was the backup to lawns, and you got
right. Your backup to your backup plan.
What was, I know lawns were something that you were familiar with. So you're like, hey, I know this, let's keep doing it. But did you have aspirations to build this massive, franchise ecosystem, or was it just like, can I build a big business in the Pacific Northwest and just go from there and see how it goes? Or did you out of the gate have aspirations to do this massive thing?
At the beginning, I just wanted to make money. I think once I had my accident in the workplace and got stuck in the PTO of the dump truck, I realized that my business had no systems, and I wanted to help other people that if I would have had a family or kids or a spouse at that time, I would have gone bankrupt because I didn't have any systems. I had hardly no profit margins. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week out in the field, and I wanted to prevent that pain from other people. And I was able to turn the business around, get it back on track, create systems, take everything I learned in my MBA and just like install it in the lawn care business. But now, like after that is when I'm like, okay, I want to help other people. And then after I started making content, I started realizing no one listens to you when you make content. And because you're just like looked as like a creator. And so I'm like, okay, great. I'll create it where now we have the same brand, we have the same uniform, and me winning means they win, and them winning means I win. And that's when actually what brought me to franchising. And so to kind of prepare myself for that is actually I bought an Anytime Fitness location. I had been a trainer there while I was in college and since I was 16 years old. And so it was about 4 years where I was doing that part-time as a trainer. And the owner was like, hey, I'm going to sell. I say, I will buy it. We'll make it work. And did an SBA financing to get that gym. And that's where I learned, like I went to training for Anytime Fitness, saw their training program. And now like many aspects of our franchise now is actually modeled after Anytime Fitness. Flat fees, the academy, the dashboard, the way they do their conference, a lot of elements of how we do Augusta is based upon that experience.
That's fascinating. I couldn't agree more. My business prior to this was a laundromat franchise chain. And once you start to understand how the world of franchising works, the systems, the training, what an FDD is, the franchise fee, the royalties, all this, area development agreements, all these things, they carry over. And regardless of whether it's grass or food or fitness, there's a lot of the same lessons learned there. And smart that you recognized it early on and said, hey, I'm going to go buy a concept of another system and learn as much as I can. One of the things I keep kind of going back to in my head right now is this tension of, Mike is incredibly sharp. He's probably one of the smartest people, if not the smartest person in the room most of the time. And you're early on building this lawn care company. How did you wrestle with what are people going to think of me? I'm doing this kind of, boring business, this outside, dirty business when I was in med school and I was doing all these other things. Was that ever a thing that you even thought about? Did it ever bother you? How did you handle or overcome that if it was a thing?
I think I did not experience that as much as you might think, mostly because my parents had literally no shoe in the game, could care less if I went to college. They had not gone to college. They specifically told me I didn't have to go to college. And so I was very much doing this on my own. I had no pressure from my family, and being that young, that's a big thing. And so I'm very thankful for that. I did get pressure from my peers that were in medicine as well as my professors. And their voices definitely rang in my ears for the first couple of years of building the business, because every single time, I didn't have money, every single time I'm working crazy hours, sun up to sundown, it's echoing in your brain. It's oh, I could have, right now I still remember thinking this, I'd be in year 2 of med school, I'd be in year 3, okay, I'd be getting my MD, and that's the same time I was getting stuck underneath the dump truck, going into getting X-rays and MRIs because they think something went wrong with my brain and everything. So all that being said, yes, I had doubts, and there was no evidence of success specifically for the first few years. But I honestly didn't have any other option. I wasn't going to go back to medical school at that point. I wanted to make money, and a lot of times not having any options kind of just keeps your head in the game long enough to actually see some evidence of success. And then once you have some evidence of success, then there's something to build on top of. And so once the business did get turned around and I did start making money and I didn't have to work as many hours, okay, there's something here I can build on top of this. But until that point, yeah, there was really no reason to think that I made a good decision dropping out of medical school.
Well, and the reason I asked too is I think a lot of our listeners, folks that we've even helped, discover franchising or buy businesses through our platform, they're working software engineering jobs. They're working for Fortune 500 companies, and there's some prestige to that and a reputation, and part of their identity is, attached to. And so more often than I was expecting, we hear some of that of oh, should I be doing a gutter cleaning thing, or what's my family going to think, or my in-laws? And I'm I don't know. If you're happy and you're making money, who cares? And someone on our team quoted Dr. Seuss. It was the people that matter don't mind, and the people that mind don't matter. And it's just do your thing, and you'll be happy. And I'm assuming that you're very happy doing what you've done, and it's been probably an incredible journey. I'll
also say this. If you stay in business long enough, trends always come and go. Meaning, yeah, 15 years ago, being in software was an amazing thing. Now all of a sudden it's disrupted, people getting laid off. We don't know about the future, and it's now flipped. Now all of a sudden, being in the lawn care business is somehow really cool. And I say, yeah, because so if someone asked me hey, what do you do for work? We were in Dallas, Brianna, my wife and I, and we were doing a cooking class together, a date night cooking class. And one of the other couples that was there, he's a big wig doing importer of spirits in Dallas, big company, and I can always determine kind of where I want the conversation to go based upon what someone asks. Say, what do you do for work? I can say I'm a franchisor. I can say I run software, and I can also say that I own a lawn care business. So, it's based on how long I want to talk or where I think this conversation is going. So I just said, hey, I own a lawn care business. And it was so funny. It was one of the first times he's like, whoa, that's a great industry. And I was I have never got that response. Because now all of a sudden it's sexy and cool and trendy to be in blue collar home services. And so in my opinion, it's do what you got to do, because maybe in 10 or 15 years, you'll be the next trend that's all of a sudden amazing. 20 years ago, people in AI were what are you doing? And now they're getting multi-million-dollar pay packages. And so I think just applying yourself to whatever you're going to do. And if you stay in business long enough, you'll probably in a 40-year career get a trend where all of a sudden you're the hot thing.
I love that. That's great advice. One thing I want to double click on too, you mentioned a lot of how you set up Augusta is based on what you'd learned from the Anytime Fitness experience. And you mentioned flat fees, and a lot of the stuff that you do, I think, is pretty unconventional, but it's super aligned and fair. And I just want to talk about that. Instead of percent royalties, there's this flat $1,600 a month, no percentage cut. Franchisees can walk away. Why did you build that way? And what does that cost you? What has it gained you? Are you glad you did it? What are some of the learnings there, and how you've set things up?
Yeah. So I'll say this for anyone that's thinking about franchising for a moment, and that actually being a franchisor, is like talk to a ton of franchisees from different systems and ask them what they like and what they don't like. So I talked to almost 200 franchisees across different systems and home services, outside of home services, gyms, like all sorts of restaurant spaces. And I just asked, like, what do you like about your franchise and what do you not like? And I just like literally took all the things that people liked, if there was 100% common denominator, and I just brought it all over. And it was like, we don't like variation of fees. I don't like, as I get more successful and better at my job and learning the systems, I pay more to the franchisor. And that's always like, they don't feel that pain until they're 3, 4, 5 years deep. And then they realize they're paying more for getting less because they kind of figured things out already. And then the other part was like people feeling like they're held over a barrel when life happens and they need to move on. And I heard this other franchise the other day. I'm forgetting which it was. Not Subway. Another franchise, I forget what it was, 30-year franchise agreements. Like, what in the world? Do you really think anyone today in 30 years is going to have their same life situation? And so I just tried to take everything that I liked about Anytime Fitness, that I saw other franchisees liking, tried to apply that, and then shed everything that they didn't like. And in terms of like regrets or like things that's cost me, the part that really cost me is we give our initial franchise feedback. And so that was something that no one ever brought up because no one even thinks about that. But I was like, if I'm going to do this Alex Hormozy thing where you make the offer so good, no one can say no, I'm just going to give your initial franchise feedback to you. And so our owners, they can either A, put their franchise fee towards their next location after 5 years, or if they do their whole 10-year agreement, they get the money back as a check. And so what that costs me is on my books, millions and millions of dollars of just this accumulating amount of money that I have to give back to my owners. And so that was definitely a financial commitment. But in my opinion, I just keep asking myself as a franchisor, what would I do? What would I want as a franchisee? And fortunately, I am a franchisee. I'm still a franchisee of Anytime Fitness. So I'm very, very acutely aware of what I hate about the corporate side. Now that private equity owns them, bless them. I know what I hate about it, and I know what I love. And I just constantly, whenever we create the franchise disclosure document, like the franchise disclosure document is your 10 commandments. It is your Bible. And so I just constantly went through every line of like, what would I want? What would I want? I'd want to be able to get out if I didn't like something. I would want flat fees. So that as I get more successful, I don't get charged more. I would want to make sure I have a guaranteed territory because I don't want anyone else coming in to my town once I've developed it. So I just tried to build it in a way where it was legally binding. Also, because if you're building a business for the next 50 years, realize that in 50 years, no one's going to be leading your company that cares as much as you. And so I like franchising and the legal aspects of it for one reason is I can, in writing, keep the system alive even if I get hit by a bus. So I can put in there that we call our franchise fee forgiveness, the give back program. And that is where we are allowing them to get that franchise fee back. But it's in writing to make sure that if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, no one's going to come along and change that. And I think if you start building a business for a 50 or 100-year term, you start making good decisions. And that's why a lot of times private equity stinks at running franchises is because they think in 5-year terms. And I went off a tangent, but that's kind of how it all came about.
No, I love that. I think, one thing I think I'm interested in is, this $1,600 flat fee, and if you can leave at any time, you have to really earn it. And what are some of those things that you guys do that are similar, maybe to other systems, but also different, that keeps people engaged versus, to your point, in 5 years, like, oh, I got this down, I've got customers, I got a recurring book of business. Like, what do I need, to keep paying this monthly fee for? Like, what keeps your longest tenured folks around, do you think?
Lots of things. So we provide a lot of consumables. And so if someone was to leave, like it would take a huge hit to their business. I want them to have that opportunity so they don't feel chained. Like this is the other thing is like, as a franchisor, do you really want someone who wants desperately to leave your system? Do you really want them around? Are you going to hold them over a barrel? What are they going to do? They're just going to spread poison to your entire community. And so there's a lot of sticky parts of a good community or a good franchise that should be irregardless of whether or not you've signed a legal document. Whether that be preferred vendor agreements where they save money, whether that be a website that should get them way more leads than if they're independent because you have domain authority. For example, like so we do web design stuff for the media side of the business, and we've developed over 1,000 home service websites. And so I can see how many leads they get in their first 6 months. I can see what we do at Augusta. And like, we get on the first page of Google in the matter of a few days of setting up a new location. That never happens in an independent. And so the ability to be able to like actually have meaningful impact on lead flow, the ability to be able to run their ads for them, the ability to be able to take their calls for them, doing things that would actively take a huge amount of effort to replace, makes it where I don't lose sleep over, oh, they're all going to leave tomorrow. It's like, you would have to reinvent your business.
I talk about it all the time. That's the value of a franchise system is you get to reduce your OpEx in the form of bulk purchasing power, so your consumables, in the form of national ad spend or collateral or domain authority or other things that are very hard to do as an individual. And I always tell people you need to look at a business and a system that you need to be able to ask the question, what are they doing for me lately, and have a good answer. And if you don't, to your point, is it worthy of being a franchise system or not? Because if all the value was just value is in the first year, is it worth it or not? And there's a very real answer that is no. Sometimes it's you are better off taking that pain for a year or two that a franchisee helps remediate up front, but it'll be worth it in the long run. It just depends on your time horizon.
Yeah, I'd say for anyone looking to join a system, if you're talking to other franchisees, my favorite question is, what has the franchisor done for you in the past 6 months that has meaningfully impacted your business in a positive way? And if they can't like identify immediately, like, oh, they added this software, they've refined this process, they've changed the website in this way, they're doing this new AI initiative, they've added this new preferred vendor. If there's not something tangible that they can put their finger on immediately, versus be like, I don't know, like kind of the same stuff as always, like they keep the lights on, like they're not going to likely be adding things to the system where you feel good about paying them a royalty in 5 years from now.
One thing I want to flip to is you were sharing with us before the show that half of your franchisees are, or existing business owners in lawn care. And I think it's a brilliant strategy to go, build up the system, but there could be some thorns on that of, folks that are like, I've done it this way for, so many years. What's that been like, and how have you overcome that? If there's been any of that, maybe they came in and they're like, I chose to do this, so of course I'm going to want to be a part of it and listen to the playbook, et cetera, et cetera. But have you dealt with any pushback, and how have you handled that?
Yeah, there's just a certain amount of humility that's required to join a franchise if you have an existing brand, because you do have to change your brand. There's certain requirements. And so I think you're already dealing with someone that realizes that they are joining, there's downsides around their customization of their own brand. And if someone's willing to walk away from the brand that they built themselves, like their baby, there's a level of humility that usually they can adapt systems. That being said, I think of systems in a franchise like a kennel. If you're trying to get a dog to Europe, the safest way to get it there when you're taking on a flight is to put it inside of a kennel. There's no dog I've ever seen willingly get inside that kennel. And I've always thought about this one image of, I was getting on this plane, there's this lady right as we were getting on the bridge, what's it called? The jet bridge, whatever it's called. And she's trying to cram this little dog into this kennel. And in my mind, I was like this dog was freaking out, biting her, like there was a whole commotion. And I realized that's very much like it is with whether it be franchisees or business owners in general. It's like we seek autonomy, and we are, by definition, as entrepreneurs, rebels. We want to go against the systems. We want to go against what people tell us to do. And putting us in a box is like the last thing we want. And so corralling an entrepreneur and saying, hey, these are the systems, you cannot get out of these, is confining, and most people don't like it. It's also the safest way to get from where you're at today to where you want to go. But there's a level of trust that I, as in this case, the pet, need to trust my owner that this kennel is going to get me there safely. And so the only way for me as a franchisor to convince people to get inside the kennel is to show proof that this is the safest route to get there. And so showing proof, whether it be your item 19, whether that be other franchisees saying, hey, I kicked against the pricks for 2 years, 3 years, and I finally implemented this and it was way better. Just do it. Just do it from the beginning. I wish I would have just listened. I wish I would have just followed the system. The more that happens, the likelihood of a new franchisee that has an existing business adopting the systems increases.
Was it Jay-Z that said men lie, women lie, numbers don't? So you show them the performance, you show their results, and they're locked in. I like that. Makes sense. I mean, I think any entrepreneur, to your point, goes against the grain. They want to do their own thing, but if you say, "Hey, I'm going to make you this much more money or save you X," and you've got proof after proof after proof point of doing it, sign me up, right? It's I think the numbers tell the story and it makes it a lot easier. Um, the last question I want to ask you about the operation, you shared this idea of pay for performance, where you're paying your crews on output, not the hours they worked. And we did something very similar at the laundromat business that we built, where it was paid per pound process, whether it was sorted or folded. And we saw productivity go through the roof. People could get more work done and leave earlier, but get paid more. Everyone was happy. Is that the same experience that you had? Was as soon as it was paid for performance, people started kind of act like owners almost instead of treating it as a job? Or what was your experience with this model?
Yeah, I think in an isolated environment like a laundromat, it's even better because you still have the ability to manage quality with a system of looking at them, a manager. Home services, a lot of people, reason that people will not do P4P is because not an isolated system and they're traveling outside of your shop space, going to a customer's home, and it's harder to manage the quality. And so the biggest fear for a home service business owner that would not do P4P is, great, I gave them a percentage of revenue and they go whip through a bunch of jobs, and now I'm left with the collateral damage of customers being unhappy, callbacks, bad quality service, etc. And so from a productivity perspective, yes, you will absolutely, what gets measured gets managed, and follow the incentive, I will show you the outcome, like Charlie Munger would say. And so yes, you will get more efficient people. You've also got to have the counterbalance around quality when it comes to a system where employees leave your place of business and go to a customer's house like we do at home services. So balancing it out with what we call yellow slips, basically callbacks, damage cases, those things are derogatory marks that take away from their P4P, pay for performance, to make sure that there's a balance between quality and quantity.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. We ran into it too. And to your point, in a controlled environment, it was easier to have, all right, there's going to be a QA person. If they come back and say you have to refold, you're going to have to redo the work. And now your pay per pound goes down. And after enough dings, you might be out as well. But you had to have the belt and suspenders. You can't just have one wrong incentive. It can ruin the whole thing. That's fascinating. I love that everything you're truly just being, it's funny, rational and logical. And it's amazing how many systems don't do that. There's like, well, everyone else pays like this or hires like this or does their franchise fee like this. So that must be what I do. And I love how you've come into this with, I'm just going to do what people want and make sure that it's aligned and is the best scenario for everyone. And it sounds like you've had tremendous success doing it. So, hats off to you for kind of going against the norm. It's not easy. It's easy to kind of go with the rest of the herd and be like, this is what everyone else does, so maybe I should do it too, even if it doesn't make sense. I want to get into, and I think this parlays into this last set of questions, but you've built a pretty awesome content engine as well. You have this awesome pipeline that I think a lot of franchisors would kill for, because a lot of franchisors go through brokers and these other very expensive channels, but you've put in time and investment into YouTube videos, a podcast, a couple of books even. I'm checking out your setup in the background. You've got box lights, you've got the mic, you've got everything. Walk me through how an audience of people, watching you mow lawns and talk numbers has turned into 200 plus signed franchisees.
Yeah, I think you want to determine, if you're building a franchise, if you're going to do it based upon your community or you're going to do it based upon the numbers. And I think a lot of times will also dictate how you build it, your FED, what length of time you're thinking in terms of horizon. Are you thinking 5 years and you're going to flip this to private equity? You just run the business differently. And so for me, it's like, look, if we have a good product, why do I need to go get a broker to convince someone to sell it? And why do I need someone else to get in the way between me and the consumer? And I want to be able to control the narrative and everything that's said about my brand. And the greatest bottleneck to getting a new franchisee is trust. Like, I don't trust this brand. I don't know anyone in this brand. I've got to go call people that they told me to call. Like, is that really legit? So there's no trust. And so the best way to gain trust from someone is repeatedly do what you said you were going to do and then demonstrate that what you said you were going to do was done. And so using content, I would say for anyone that's a franchisor, is just do that. Like, I'm going to build this business. Like, okay, great. I'm going to demonstrate me doing it. And that's what AI can't do. Like, it doesn't have any experience. It doesn't have any real proof of what it's telling you. You just kind of have to trust that that algorithm tells you what to do. And so demonstratable experience, being able to show your weak points, what you do to change, being able to have trust built up. We build trust with humans. And so seeing your vulnerabilities, the issues, the problems that you go through, but then how you fixed it. And so I started creating content right after I got in that accident and started changing the business. And so all I did was document, like, hey, like, I don't know why I'm paying some people $2 more an hour and they're less productive. Okay, I'm interested in this thing called P for P. Okay, and here's the problem with it, and here's how we're gonna have to balance out quality. And I just started sharing my problem and what I'm doing to fix it, and just documenting that process. And yeah, every single owner of Augusta has come from the content. And I think, will that need a change in the future? Potentially, especially as we have more of investor types that are coming to a broker as the most efficient way to determine which franchise brand is best for them, and they have $1 million to deploy. That's possible. It's also likely why a lot of my audience that has joined the franchise has existing businesses, because I'm making content for their industry. And so I think as a brand evolves and grows past a couple hundred locations, it is natural to get more people from brokers, from outside of your industry. But for myself, I just was constantly speaking to the 18-year-old version of me that left med school, and the 21-year-old version of me that got stuck underneath the dump truck and almost lost the business. And I just kept talking to those same people. And that's the type of people I am attracting into the franchise, is either people that are like leaving a 9-to-5 or a business they hate, or they are running an existing lawn care business. They don't have any systems. They feel like they can't scale this thing. They don't have any community, and they need help. And when you create content for the earlier version of you, it's likely that the earlier version of you would choose what you now have. And so the 20-year-old version of me would die to have systems and a command center and a website that gets me on the first page of Google Fast. Like, these are the things that it's an easy, quote, sale to the 20-year-old version of myself.
Yeah, I love that. I love looking at it that way. And you talked about Hormozy earlier. He talks about organic and content being arguably the best channel for any business, because it's people that have a relationship with you. They viewed, all hours or minutes of all this stuff that you've done. There's now this almost sense of an actual relationship and dialogue, even though you haven't had it one-on-one necessarily. And then he goes on to say, well, you also need, channel variation and variability. You can't just depend on 100% of leads here. And so, is search the next best, because they're actively engaged in searching for this thing. And then it becomes kind of affiliate referral. And, in a way, brokers become that role, albeit in a very expensive one, but they're essentially referring a candidate based on their interest, needs, risk tolerance, capital, allocation, et cetera, to a brand that fits those criteria. But now the brand is out their franchise fee, and especially in a model like yours where you're giving that franchise fee back at the end, it can get very expensive over time, and you have to be thoughtful about these channels and how you're attracting people. And I think you've done a phenomenal job doing it. I mean, even to the point that you're testing content before posting it, all these different things, different styles, different edits, etc. Are you now, as you make content, are you optimizing for views? Is it for franchise inquiries? Is it for, how do you think about it as you put content together, the goal?
Yeah, I think first thing first is, for people that are wanting to franchise specifically, is very easy to say that content has drove all our leads. I'll also say I never asked for a franchise to ever think about joining for 5 years, of making content and creating courses for free, doing webinars for free, so for 5 years, if you're willing to make an audience and create goodwill with them, then yes, you can ask to franchise. And I say that because if you think you're going to hop on your YouTube channel and start selling your franchise because you're making organic content, good luck. You have not built the thing that is the ingredient of building a community, and that is trust. And so I would just caveat with that. In terms of how I think about what I'm optimizing for, there's got to be a little bit of both. Like, you got to get breadth with views to be able to get new eyeballs. Otherwise, you're just going to keep talking to the same 20 people. I've also got to get depth, because they're not going to join a franchise based upon a TikTok or a short that's funny of me mowing grass. However, if I get 10 million people to see my face 10 times, and then all of a sudden they start a lawn care business, and then they see me again, and I'm talking about the deep numbers of my business that might only get 1% of the amount of views, but now I'm talking to qualified candidates to join my franchise. So I think there's got to be a little bit of both. And what's really interesting is recently we started to where we track every single video for the links that are clicked in the description. We have QR codes. Like, we now know which videos are driving how many leads across the system, whether it be software, the franchise, web design, etc. And it's really interesting because, yeah, I can get a video that does 100,000 views. We do turnaround shows, so I fly out and we like document me turning the business around. Yeah, that might get 100 or 200,000 views, and let's just say we have 300 leads from that. I might do a video that has 5,000 views but gets 100 leads. Because I'm talking about a very narrow topic that's only talking to my ICP, my ideal customer profile, and is talking about a higher level business topic that no one cares about outside of my ICP. And so I feel like there's got to be both, and I kind of ebb and flow based upon what I feel like creating, just because the longevity of creating 5 videos a week that go public is, you just got to do what keeps your head in the game, because it's so easy to burn out.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I mean, we're on this journey right now on our end too of thinking about, is it viewership? Is it followers? Is it qualified leads? And I think you have to have a mix. I don't think there's a silver bullet of, just one style or one channel or one approach to it all. One trap that I think, we think about, and I think it's probably applicable to your situation is, you create content that can bring in volume. In some cases, you said it's more niche and it's more to the ICP and qualified leads, but with the volume-based content that brings in a ton of interest, there might be a lot of people that look good on paper, but then they fail as the ideal franchisee, or that the wrong type. What, I guess, or who is that franchisee that looks perfect in the application and then turns out to be wrong for your type of business? Does that happen? Is there a persona that you see that you're like, nope, wrong?
Ooh, a persona. Okay, so yeah, for us, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 7 owners that want to join get in. And so we are actively weeding out about 75 to 80%, sometimes more, of people that are like, yeah, let's do it. All right, they're qualified, they have the money, let's go. And the reason is because the way we have it set up, where we're not making a ton of money on each owner, we have to have like the scale. Meaning, I am incentivized with a flat fee to keep you in business. And so, like, again, my incentive is that you stick around for a long time. And it's pretty easy to identify a franchisee that's going to come into a system and expect to only take from the system. So the community, the preferred vendors that you built up, the brand awareness, there are givers and there are takers. And a community is only as good as the ratio of givers to takers inside that community. And so we always are asking, we want to be able to give more than we take. Because in any community, there's a give and take. Any relationship, there's a give and take. But if everyone in the community is thinking about how they can take from the franchise, eventually the franchise brand and all the community associated with it gets dissolved. And that's why a lot of times when private equity steps in and they just immediately start taking from the franchisees, taking from the goodwill of the company, taking away benefits, support, improvements, etc. Why are we surprised when all of a sudden the franchisees are all trying to do the same thing? Everyone's just trying to grab. Now all of a sudden we have the U.S. debt, like just $39 trillion. Why? We have a whole bunch of people trying to take instead of give back to the community. And so I think that's the number one thing we're looking for. Is this person hopping on a call and be like, what can you do for me? What about this? What about my website? Am I going to get leads? Can you guarantee I'm going to get leads? Like, of course, we're trying our very best over here. I can't guarantee you anything, but if that's a constant theme of theirs, and it's like, what are you going to give me? Like, prove your worth to me. If that is something that they are constantly talking about, we start to have areas of caution versus them realizing that, if they start asking questions about like our coaching program, for example, that's where they actually join the coaching program. We train them to coach other owners so they give back. We have the franchise fee forgiveness program where their employees can become franchisees without a franchise fee. And if they start talking about that, if they talk about the 21 stages of success, how their technicians can become a general manager and become an owner, if they start talking that language, that's like talking dirty to us. If all they're doing is talking about what they're going to take from the system, what we're going to give them, how many leads am I going to get, can you guarantee I'm going to make this much revenue? That's many times the sign of someone that only wants to take from the system. And in the long run, that community will fall apart.
Mm-hmm. I think that's well put. It's The franchisor-franchisee relationship is one that many people, I think, find controversial, and they argue, they see things like Subway where they're building stores to cannibalize other franchisees almost on purpose. And I agree, for franchising as a model to work, and it's an amazing model when done right, there has to be give and take. It's a partnership between the franchisor and the franchisee. And so for those listening, as much as you're buying into a system and expecting a lot of this value, like, you're also helping to create the system, and you can't create without giving into it and sharing ideas and helping others that are franchisees. And I think for the franchisors, listening, same thing. You can't just be this, I hope we collect our 6% and we've already built the brand, so we deserve this, and that's it. You have to constantly be reinvesting and innovating and growing the brand. That's your responsibility. And I think that gets lost too often. And what you just shared, Mike, I think is, again, very, very well put. One of the last questions on this kind of main conversation I have before we jump into some quick hitters is, you've shared that the goal at some point is to take the parent company public and make home service owners rich, make them wealthy 5 years out. What does that look like, and what has to be true about the franchisee base to get you guys there?
Yeah, so there's three pillars of the whole co, which is the parent company. That part will take public. So like the franchise, across the system, we'll do over 75 million in revenue this year. But then we also have Homeworks, which is the software we use, and that is available to the public as well. And we made it available to the public so that way we can actually fund the massive development team that's required to build a SaaS product. And so that's another vertical of the holdco, which is the software side, also the P4P software. We develop that. And then the third part is the media. So that's like we do websites, conferences, etc. My books, that's all the media. So that's kind of like the three-headed monster. We look at it as kind of like the media being the customer acquisition engine, and then the software being the valuation engine, and then the franchise being the cash engine. And together, all three, being able to take it public and then using the funds from going public via IPO would probably go into robotics at that point, and then be able to use the scale of the franchise, which we want to get to 1,000 locations. Use the scale of the franchise to be able to take a dominant position in robotics, using the scale and the financing from the IPO.
Brilliant. I love it. You got this mapped out. I'm so excited to follow along. I've already loved seeing some of the journey and hearing more about it today, but I'm excited to see where you take this. I think the three pieces together in unison, or we're doing something similar here at Franzi with content, the platform, and so I'm smiling, finding myself smiling a few times, just being like, there's a lot of similarities, and I'm looking forward to keeping in touch. For those listening, where can we send them to find you before we jump into some of these quick hitters? But where can we send people? Is there a channel name that you want to share, or a specific channel they should go to check more of your stuff out?
Yeah, MikeCandies.com. It's all free courses. There's nothing paid on there. And then if you go to YouTube, just search Mike Candies. A lot of the turnaround shows is what people like the most. We travel out to small businesses that are struggling, and then I got a few hours to turn the business around. Then we check in 6 weeks later and see what happened. So
that's cool. Awesome. Check it out, MikeCandies.com. Let's jump into some quick hitters real quick. I'll pick from a few here. Ideally, a couple sentence answers. Let's get into it. The first one is, you studied a gym franchise with thousands of locations and then copied it a little bit to sell lawn care. What did Anytime Fitness understand about scale that the whole landscaping industry missed?
What a good system can be replicated over and over again without breaking. And if it does break, the system's incorrect, even though it's in different markets. So it's very easy in lawn care to be like, oh, it's a different market, different climate. But like, and Anytime Fitness looks the same here as Japan, as Australia, as the desert, and doesn't matter the climate. And so that's been the most challenging part with lawn care is, how can I make a system that works in all these climates, all these different geographies, different countries, different legalities? And that's been the biggest challenge.
I like that. I want to go back to your early years. What did mowing lawns for money at 11 years old teach you that no business school ever could?
Well, I was allergic to grass, so bad career choice. So what it really taught me is, like, sometimes it's just going to be painful, and whatever you want on the other side of pain, better be worth it. And the only thing that'll keep your head in the game when you want to quit is the mission of what you're trying to achieve. And so it better be big, and it better be something you're really excited about, because there's going to be times you have no evidence of success, and the only way to get to your goal is through the problem you're currently facing.
You got to work through the pain. I love it. This next one we didn't get to in the main conversation, so I'm glad we're talking about it here. But a common thing with lawn care businesses is that they go broke or it gets very slow in the winter, right? And so you bolted on Christmas lights to keep locations earning in Q4. How much does killing that seasonality actually change what an owner takes home? Like, what's the real numbers, dollars and cents that that adds on that the business would have otherwise lost or not had the opportunity to have?
Yeah, so I had looked at like over 400 P&Ls in the home service industry, and I just took out their worst quarter, which is almost always one quarter of the year where leads drop off a cliff, revenue drops off a cliff. I just took out that one quarter, and I took the average of the other quarters and just replaced it. And in doing so, almost doubled the profitability on average. It was like 70 some odd % increase in profits just by taking the average of the other 3 quarters and replacing the worst quarter. And so for the vast majority of home service businesses or any business that has seasonality where revenue drops by more than 50% of their best month, or you lose money in any month of the year, anytime that happens, the only thing to focus on is how can I solve that problem? Because every other problem in the business gets smaller if I can just have consistent revenue, consistent profits, and consistent leads. And so that was really our biggest focus a couple years ago.
It's the bottleneck in a way. It's if you figure out that one piece, it opens up everything else. It makes everything easier. I completely agree. All right, last two. Why do you hand the entire franchise fee back after 10 years when no other franchisors typically do that?
I think if a franchisee has been in the system for 10 years in our community, they are usually a part of the franchise advisory council. They're a coach. They're setting up meetups in their local area. And so my nod to someone that is contributing to the community of I appreciate you is I will give you the money back that you gave me because you trusted me 10 years ago to join this franchise when it was a lot smaller, when it didn't have as much brand recognition. I'll give you this money back knowing you're going to be a good steward of it and probably help other people. You're going to have the 3F program where technicians become owners underneath you, and you're going to propagate the mission of the business. And if someone's been with me for 10 years and the entire time they're not handcuffed to the business, there's a level of trust and support they have for me, and I'm trying to reciprocate that.
Yep, it goes back to that whole give and take belief that we talked about earlier. I love that. The last one is you've quietly built this software company on the side of the lawn care franchise. Which one do you actually think is going to make you the most money, the mowing or the software?
So I would not build the software if I didn't have the franchise. And I believe that the reason the software will be successful is because we have the franchise and because I talk to the owners every single day. Most software founders, they see the problem, they see the solution, it looks good on paper, so they go build the software product. Whereas I'm with my owners every single day, talking to them, figuring out what the best solution is. And so I would certainly give up the software before I would the franchise because the software is a means to an end. I need software to be able to control robotics. And that is the missing link that a lot of robotic companies don't have, is they don't have software. So my goal with robotics is like we have the distribution, the franchisees. We have the software stack. We can own that and have Command Center to be able to operate them remotely. And then we have the actual hardware. And that's where I think we'll get a huge moat in the future. But I only have the software because I care deeply about the owners. And there's no one in software right now that is not just trying to hit their next number for VC or private equity. And I feel like that is an opportunity, but much more a problem for my franchise in the future if no one's thinking in terms of the next 50 years.
Yeah, I love it. It's brilliant. There's a company here in Charlotte called Lucid Bots. If you ever want an intro, they make robotic drones for window cleaning and all sorts of stuff, and all made in America. Might be an interesting connection. I just thought of it. But Mike, incredible conversation, incredible story. Thank you for sharing the wisdom, the stuff that you've learned, what you're building. Again, MikeAndes.com for those listening if you want to check out more. But thank you for coming on, truly.
My pleasure. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate you.
All right. That was awesome. You have seriously a hell of a story. And if you're not already, you should be very proud of what you've done. I mean, it's not easy to go out and do this stuff, especially with multiple, moving parts like you've got. I'd love to, if you're ever in Charlotte, grab dinner or drinks or coffee or something. If I'm ever up your neck of the woods, same thing. And
which side of Charlotte you on?
I live right in Uptown.
Okay.
We don't have a downtown. We try to be different, I guess, here and call it Uptown.
I was in South Park for a while.
Okay.
I started a location like for a month and just like documented all on the YouTube channel. But yeah, I was in South Park. So I know decently around Charlotte.
Nice. Yeah, if you ever back out this way, let me know. And then one of my good childhood friends lives in Seattle. He works for REI and does like product design there. So every once in a while I get up that way.
That's good.
So if I'm ever there, I'll let you know. And then maybe there's some chance to collab on content here and there as well. So if there's any ideas that come up, we'll let you know.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alex. I really appreciate it. Once
Yeah,
you get the
thanks, Mike.
podcast app, you send me a link, whatever, I'll post it on my channels too.
Yeah, we'll clip everything and send you stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Cool.
Thank you, Max.
YouTube has this new algorithm using AI that takes all your viewing behavior and recommends a video. So the algorithm says that this video is the best video for you. Check it out.